everyone. I can see that a lot of people have logged in, and I want to say a very warm hello. And you've logged in because you're interested in study abroad, or at least interested in the topic, which said becoming a global citizen. So I want to say something about the title because I chose it for a particular reason. When I said becoming a global citizen, it's about what we become through a process. But then that raises issues of identity. Who are we? And who are we becoming? So every day, as students, as professionals, we are in the process of becoming something better, something deeper, something more sensitive, something more innovative, more knowledgeable, all of that, because we are dynamic individuals. We are human beings are made that way. And aspiration is a very, very important part of that. So I want to speak a little bit about that. So who we are now is a complex mix of influences. We are shaped by our culture, by our religion, by the families in which we are raised. We are also shaped by the system of education in which we are. We learn to master that system of education. If it's based on memory, we learn to be good at that. If we need to learn by rote, we have to max that. But if we go to something else, we need to look at something different, a different system of education. Okay, so that's the thought I want you to hang on to. So we are a mix of different complex influences that shape us, shape our personalities, and shape the way we think and work as students and as professionals. That's excellent. Why? Because it gives us roots, and that's excellent to have roots. But what about the desire to achieve? The desire for something more, the desire to aspire, to fly, to do something else, something bigger, better. Well, for that, you need wings. And that is the role of international education. So if you are students and you have the roots and you have mastered a system of education, then to make you more adaptable, more global, that is the role of international education. I'm Dr. Maina Chawla Singh. I have been a professor and I've been part of a faculty at many different universities. The last stint was in the US when I taught at American University and Georgetown in Washington, DC. Because of my research and the academic books that I have authored, I have also visited more than 40 premier universities and institutions in Europe, the UK, and the USA. So I speak from that experience of being an academic and having had in my classes students from all over the world. I have also seen many of my students, in fact, now living and working in many different parts of the world. I have seen them in collaborative teams, which are very, very international teams. Very often in my classes, we used to be 7 or 8 different nationalities. And that was a pleasure to be in a situation where people bring in different perspectives. So I'm speaking from that exposure and that experience of being very much a part of international education and the process of that education, which I have seen transform many different students and professionals of tomorrow, or upgrade professionals of today to become more globally employable. This session is being hosted by Leverage Edu, India's top-ranking university admissions service, which supports the journey of students who are aspiring for international education or the top education in India or abroad, mostly abroad for those students who aspire for something different, something more, who want to add something additional to their degrees, to be able to make themselves more knowledgeable, better enhance their employability, and eventually what I will talk about is also become people who recruiters want to employ. So with that, I want to say that Leverage Edu's educational support service for university admissions overseas supports the journey from the time of your aspiration, when you dream of a particular university, or you dream of the top 5 that you would like to go to. And then it supports your journey as you sign up and are taken over by a set of professionals who see you through from the time of your identifying the right fit for you, from exploring the options for you, the programs, the universities, even the destinations. And then you're in the charge of a head coach who actually supports you through the entire process, which may take 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, depends on the time that you have, until the time that you have sorted out your visa issues. And the best part is they also help you to find the finances if you need it. In fact, recently, Leverage Edu has launched a huge 5 crore fund for scholarships, and there is eligibility here. So I'm going to go back now to the topic itself, having told you about the services that are offered by our hosting organization. I don't know if you know, but there's been a recent survey in 2021 which showed that 94% of Indian students are more eager to study abroad in 2021 than in the last 1 year. Now that says something. 85% from these choose between 5 countries. The favorite destinations are UK, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Germany is an emerging destination. So is Russia for science, for medicine, and other subjects. The US, by the way, 50% of the foreign students in the US are either Indian or Chinese. So I want to speak about study abroad with 3 key words: exposure, experience, and employability. Let me talk a little bit about exposure. Exposure is not about, the exposure I'm talking about is not about going on a vacation to a foreign country, about backpacking or going with the family or taking a tour of seeing 10 countries in 15 days in Europe and saying, I have a lot of exposure. I'm not denying that being in a particular place, even for 2 or 3 days, tells you a lot about that place. You get a feel of it. But that's not the exposure I'm talking about. The exposure I'm talking about has a different kind of value. Why does it have that value? Because it is more about immersion in a culture, in a work culture, in an education culture, and just the feel of how things are done in a place that is not familiar to you. You know, social science studies have shown that international experience actually enhances people's creativity. And you know today that creativity and critical thinking are really top skills that any employer is looking for. They're not just looking at your degrees, but what you're going to do with that degree. Because so many thousands of people will have the same technical degree or the engineering degree or the MBA. How are you going to be different? So this is where creativity is an extremely important facet to have and to cultivate. I want to say that it's something that you can cultivate with the right kind of exposure. Let me tell you how. When you go to study in a different system, in a different country, what do you have to do? You have to face something new. You have to navigate something new, a different mode of teaching, a different mode of assessment, not the same kind of exams, maybe project-based work, maybe teamwork. You have to learn to get your team up. You have to team up with people who have different levels of ability. They might speak different languages. I don't just mean language in terms of French and German and Russian, but they might speak different intellectual languages depending on the way that they were trained in that system of education. So when you go to study in a different system, you learn to navigate the new, the unfamiliar, and you learn. You learn also to understand. What does understanding do? It challenges. When something is new, it's a different system, it's a different way of thinking. It challenges you to rethink what you have learned. You learn maybe to see that a certain way of assessing your abilities was not so good for you. Maybe when you had to do critical thinking, maybe when you had to do project-based learning, you were much smarter and your grades were much higher. So basically, it challenges you into thinking and looking at new ways of doing things. There's something interesting that happens here, which is that it challenges your bias. We're all biased in favor of the familiar. So we think our system, our culture, our family systems, our political systems are better than others. Well, this challenges those ways of thinking. It reduces biases of intergroup othering. You stop thinking of the other as something just very good or very bad, and you get a more layered and deeper and more mature understanding. What does this do for your career? It makes you that kind of person who doesn't have the triggers to jump at things because they are different. You learn to assess. You learn to quietly process things before letting the trigger just go and react to things. So this actually transforms your sense of self and adds many new layers. You might have a certain view of what the UK is, and you find yourself in Manchester, and you realize that Manchester is not like London, and London is not like Manchester. Well, Delhi is not like a small town, and Mumbai is not like a small town. And Delhi and Mumbai are both big cities, but very different cultures and very different from each other. What does this exposure do? This exposure makes you better, more layered, less simplistic, less quick in making judgments that might be wrong. It actually begins to rewire your brain in a more complex way. Your understanding is more layered. Your intellect is sharpened. And you learn different ways of doing things. You learn different ways of relating with people because people have different cultures. Some cultures are very relaxed about teamwork and some are very hierarchical. And you learn to adapt. You learn to look at knowledge in a different way, not just think that the knowledge you had is the best, but you learn that there are some things that are great about the knowledge you had, and there are some things wonderful about other ways of thinking, other perspectives, other modes. Why is that important? Because it will change the way that you approach work. It will change the way that you approach life. You will not have a single perspective. You will have a broader perspective. You will have a deeper understanding of difference, of different perspectives, and that will make you more adaptable. Why is that such an important asset? To be adaptable is to be flexible. It doesn't mean that you don't have views of your own. It just means that you are open to other ways of doing things, other ways of problem solving. You might be a coder, you might be a finance person, you might be doing programming, you might be doing work in AI, but if you're not willing to see things from other perspectives, you are having a tunnel vision. When you have a tunnel vision, you actually close off many possibilities for innovation, which is where I think study abroad is a really important way of widening your perspective. And I keep using the word layers because our layers of understanding give us texture rather than being just simple. So the ability to understand and work in global teams, this is what I'm getting at. This is what leads to, well, how do you put the conclusion to a theorem? QED promotes your career prospects, global opportunities. Why? Because teams today are comprised of perspectives and knowledge from different countries. You might have great advances in Germany in a particular kind of science. You might have excellent perspectives out of Russia. You might have a certain kind of machine learning that comes out of the Silicon Valley. And you will need to put all of those things together to create something new and different and wonderful. Am I saying that your degrees don't count? Of course, your degrees count. The choice of your program really counts. And you have to be very careful about that, which is why you need the support. You need the research on your own about different institutions that you can go to. So you can do that first search on Google. In fact, it's better to be a well-informed student who is aspiring for something better. You do your research and you shortlist a few things. And then when you approach counseling services, they are able to really give you the best because they have an entire research team that supports you. They have psychometric tests, which enable you to actually come to terms with what might be your best assets. You might think you won't be good at something, but your test might reveal that actually you have potential in that direction. And so all of those tests, which are about ability, which are about motivation, all of those tests will help you through the counseling service, and the professionals at Leverage Edu will help you to make that decision until you are ready with a short list of 5 or 6 universities that you want to target. So finally, your choice of program, your choice of destination, all of those things are very important. The application process, about which we have done many videos already. And if you would like more, you need to say that in the chat box, or you need to DM us and let us know, and we will do the kind of sessions that you would like. But after that process is over and you have arrived at your destination, what counts most? It's you. It's what you get out of it, which is why I have been talking about identity, is how you deepen your own sense of your identity. How do people view you after your study abroad? Of course, I want to say here that just going to a university is not everything. When you are there, you must engage with the place, their culture. How are they different from the culture that you are from? How is the geography different? How is the environment different? How is society different? How has their history been different? What are the difficult parts of their history? Just like we have some difficult things in our history, there are some similar histories which every country is coming to terms with, about discrimination, about social injustice, about inequities. It's if you live in a place for 2 or 3 years or 4 years, that is something you need to know. Why? Because as I said in the beginning, your teams, the teams that you work with, are products of their own social influences, just like you are a product of the cultural and social influences that you have been shaped by, which is what I started talking about. So this is how, when you work with a cohort, a research team, a group in a class, or just a student team, you can bring something new to that team because you are engaging and analyzing different modes of thinking. You bring your own and you learn from others. This is how intellectual orientations of different teams and different kinds of members in a group, in a class, can actually shape those things. So these are the reasons that I want you to think about study abroad as an option. I want to also say that yes, there is, when you convert rupees into dollars or pound sterling or the euro, it's a lot of money. This is where I want to say that there are a lot of loans available. There are also scholarships available. And this is where the experts at Leverage Edu will help you to navigate the possibilities. So do not turn away from the option of becoming a global citizen because you feel that the costs might be a detriment. There might be a way to go around those costs. So do not give up. I want to say that there is a 30-minute free counseling session that you can avail of with Leverage Edu. and there will be all the numbers very soon on the screen, or at the end, you can put your questions in the chat box. We will also put numbers on the chat. But apart from that, I want to say that all the social media handles have the Leverage Edu presence, so you can reach us on any of those. I would like to put up a couple of slides just as a recap. And in my first slide, I'm just basically just doing a recap to say that your degree counts. Yes, of course it counts, and you need to do well in that degree. If you are going with a degree from India, that's great. It does count, but you at the end count much more. And the you is not just your degree. The degree is a part of who you are. When a recruiter is looking for you or looking to fill a position, or when an entrepreneur is doing a startup and is looking for bright young people on a team, they are not just looking at that piece of paper. You know that many, many very successful entrepreneurs are not the ones who got their 99% in their degrees. There's obviously something else that matters too. And this is where being a global citizen, thinking in a global way is going to really give you that extra edge. So you count more. And we'll go to the next slide now. Just to recap, to say that study abroad add layers to your personality. I want to say it won't change your passport. That might take much longer if you decide to take on a PR route, but it will transform you. That I'm sure. You will gain a multicultural identity, and you will gain a global professional citizenship. All right, so I do want to say that your application process also varies depending on the country that you are going to. So ultimately, destinations are really important. Your first choice your first way of looking at things should really be about the program you want to do. There's no point in looking at a destination if you're not sure about the program you want to do. So even if you're a science-based person, do you want to go further into data? Do you want to go into management? Do you want to go into fintech? What do you want to do? That's your first thing. And it is from there that you're going to shortlist where the courses are. And that's when you're going to begin consulting somebody who's a professional, who will get the research team on it. And maybe they will come up with amazing programs which are not what you may have come across. For example, Israel is a very wonderful destination for work in science. You know, it is called a startup nation. And it's excellent for postdoc, it's excellent for PhDs. You might think there is nothing there in English, and that's where you're wrong. I have lived in Israel, and I know that many students who came from India for their postdocs were able to go from there to the US and get some excellent fellowships. So there are many ways to consider your destinations, and there are many aspects to study abroad. So this was a generic session. Thank you very much to everybody who's logged in. I hope that this has triggered a little bit of interest in finding out more. As an educator, that's the purpose of the sessions I do, is to be able to trigger curiosity for you to want to know more. So if you want to know more, you will find us on all the numbers that were there. You will find me on LinkedIn. You can reach us for your first 30-minute free counseling session. Thank you very much for logging in. Bye for now. Bye-bye.